Up across North Alabama, Tunica is betting the house with the new I-269 corridor and sports gambling. The flashing lights of Tunica, Mississippi have found it harder in recent years to lure gamblers with dreams of hitting the jackpot. In the early 90s, 14,000 people worked at casinos here. Today, that number has dropped to 7,800.
People from mid-America really flocked here. Well, today, every American is within a 2-hour drive of a casino.
The heyday saw $1.2 billion in revenue generated. The latest numbers show a drastic decline, down by 50%. So gaming officials are swapping the spinning wheels of the slot machine for cold hard cash. Sports betting has been legalized in Mississippi casinos. Numbers in August show $645,000 in taxable revenue was put into state coffers. That same month, the state legislature approved a lottery bill.
Johnny Mack says, let the people vote on an Alabama lottery.
Something the state of Alabama has not been able to accomplish since first talked about back in the Governor Don Siegelman days. Politicians love to talk about it. They hope it will generate votes.
Alabama is one of the last places that doesn't do it, and so it's a popular topic for that reason, and then as well as the potential to increase state funding, at least is the idea.
Keith Malone is an economics professor at the University of North Alabama. He's a self-proclaimed numbers guy. So do these numbers make sense? Politicians thought a lottery would generate $332 million a year for the state economy. Malone reviewed the Auburn University of Montgomery report on the legalization of gambling in Alabama, where they get the estimate. He says it's full of holes.
It didn't really do all the things that similar studies do in terms of studying the full impact of gaming on the state of Alabama.
Malone says the AUM report consisted of 24 pages. A similar study before Florida created a lottery was a book, more than 300 pages.
Developing public policy, kind of in a halfway measure, is usually going to end up being bad public policy, which can harm the residents of the state.
He says a big picture study should include both social and economic factors, as well as the potential of how much money the state could keep at home. Let's use the Magnolia State as an example. They were the latest to approve a state lottery. They did their homework and crunched the numbers. If we draw an imaginary line which represents their border states, their researchers say more than $70 million a year crosses over it to buy lottery tickets. We can't find any similar numbers calculated by a state-sponsored study for Alabama, so right now it's just a guess. In our bordering states, Florida grossed $6.1 billion in their education-based lottery. The Georgia Lottery Corporation reported sales of $4.5 billion. For the same 2017 fiscal year, Tennessee saw sales of $4.2 billion. The common denominator of all three? Education trust funds received almost 25% of the revenue brought in, money some in Alabama would like to cash in on.
In terms of missing the ball, I think there would be, there's potential benefits still there. Obviously, as we've already talked about, recapturing the money that is currently leaving the state would be at least some benefit.
So going back to the much-announced $332 million for Alabama, when Malone crunched the numbers, his revenue estimates ranged from $133 million to $249 million. He says at this point, it is possible for a lottery to increase state funding, but it's no guarantee, making lottery money for Alabama anything but a sure bet.